So in today's video, I want to talk about the Dragon deal. The Dragon deal between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, which is a natural gas deal that was signed a little bit over a year ago under the Biden administration. And this venture was pretty much like a lifeline for Trinidad and Tobago, because we know Trinidad and Tobago, they have been going through a lot recently. And this was a lifeline in terms of bringing back their economy to what it was like 20 years ago. And this is less about the natural gas deal itself, and it's more about geopolitics, why I want to touch on this topic. And for decades, we have seen the Caribbean, we have seen countries right across Africa, and we have seen people within Africa, people within the Caribbean, put a bulk of the blame of why these countries are not successful on the governments. So we have seen the destabilization of places like Haiti, and we see people across the Caribbean region that they would put a bulk of the blame and the criticism on the government of Haiti. We have seen the same thing in Cuba, and a lot of people, they have put the bulk of the blame on these leaders. But now we're seeing in real time, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of how America actively, we're seeing it in front of our eyes, doing the things that could destabilize these Caribbean islands. And back in the days, like, yes, we could just blame the leaders because a lot of the deals were done behind closed doors and we don't know the intricacy of those deals. Now we're seeing the Trump administration, they do everything publicly. So you see things on Instagram, you see things on X. We also see things playing out on TikTok and on True Social. And the reality is that this is how the Donald Trump administration, they operate in a public way. And we have seen this with the deportation that began in January when Donald Trump administration, they started to deport people back to their country. And we saw the public spectacle of the deportation with people being deported on military planes. And we saw the mainstream media showing up there and broadcasting everything live. And the thing about this, like the Trinidad and Tobago government and the Venezuelan government, this is a project that they have been working on for years. And they have done things the right way. And this deal was already signed and sealed, but the Trump administration decided to revoke the license for this deal. So let me drag your memory back to a year ago when this deal was signed.
Energy and Energy Industries Minister Stuart Young and Venezuela's Minister of Petroleum and President of PDVSA, Pedro Telecha, signed the document on behalf of their respective governments. What it means now is Trinidad and Tobago can resume doing business related to the Dragon gas field. PDVSA has found reserves of 4.2 trillion cubic feet in the Dragon field on the Venezuelan side of its maritime border with Trinidad. The project stalled about 10 years ago because of a lack of capital and investors as well as U.S. sanctions. The Office of Foreign Affairs Control of the U.S. Treasury Department, in charge of enforcing sanctions, authorized this country to exploit the field on the condition it does not pay a single dollar to Venezuela. The Dragon field is located in the northeast of Venezuela, near the maritime border with Trinidad and Tobago, adjacent to Trinidadian fields currently operated by British transnational Shell. At the signing ceremony at the Miraflores Presidential Palace in Caracas, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro said the next step would be to sign agreements for the joint exploitation of the shared Laurel and Manatee fields in Trinidad and Tobago. Shell has interests in Laurel and Manatee.
Yes, so that was a little over a year ago where the Dragon deal between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela was signed. And this was under the Biden administration. The license were given under the Biden administration for this deal to go forward. And now we see in 2025, this deal is being revoked by the Trump administration. And this is what the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago had to say.
Now been informed that our license from OFAC, which is dated the 18th of December 2023, has been revoked by OFAC. And that license is now revoked by OFAC, as well as our coquina mannequin license. It came a little while after the others. What I can tell Trinidad and Tobago is I don't have more details than that. There is a wind down period. So this is not an immediate. All when OFAC does this, you will see, even when they're done with Chevron, all of them, they grant you a wind down period. So the wind down period for this is until the 27th of May. And that allows you an opportunity before it kicks in fully for you to engage with the United States, which is what we're doing. I am, to be honest, not surprised by the outcome, because they did say that they did explain to me the US policy and what they were trying to achieve with respect to Venezuela. But the words that they would not harm Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, I have no reason to doubt it whatsoever, remain in play. I stood here for the last two post-cabinet press conferences and told you about the success, for example, that BP is turning on additional production. So we have continued doing exactly what needs to be done. So don't buy the narrative of those who try to say all of the eggs are in the dragon basket. It's the complete opposite. So you've seen, and if you ask the people in the energy industry in Trinidad and Tobago, you've seen that rise in activity that has kept us stable at 2.6 BCF a day of production.
Okay, so that was the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago talking about the Dragon deal and how the license was revoked by the Trump administration. And this video is not to pick up for politicians in the Caribbean and in Africa, but I believe that over the decades that some of the politicians have gotten a raw deal in terms of how we perceive them as crooks and as criminals. And the reality is that even though we are independent in the Caribbean, this is just how the superpowers have worked over the decades. When we see what is happening in Haiti and we attribute that just to poor leadership, that is not a fair assessment of what took place in Haiti. Like, if we look close and we study history and we have seen how countries in Africa, in the Caribbean have been destabilized, we need to wake up and realize what is going on. And this deal with Trinidad and Venezuela is a perfect example, because what the Trump administration would say is that, look, this deal is supporting Venezuela, an illegitimate government. And that, to me, is a level of hypocrisy. Because what Venezuela, they are accusing the Venezuelan government of, we see things like these happen in the Middle East. We saw America long relationship with China. Because of America, China became a global powerhouse because a lot of the manufacturing were sent to China back from like 40 years ago. And even though China was accused of not being a democratic country, we saw America still working with them. We saw like Saudi Arabia, we saw like Qatar, like a lot of the countries in the Middle East who do not have like free and fair elections, but the American administration over decades have still worked with these countries. Same thing in Russia. So what is the difference between those countries and Cuba, Venezuela, and Haiti? So I believe that we need to wake up in the Caribbean. And yes, we have corrupt leaders, but this is bigger than our leaders in the Caribbean. And when you look at what is going on in Guyana, and we are going to have a rude awakening that, look, Guyana have this massive deal with Exxon. And I believe that this deal is not going to be as attractive as even myself expected, like a good deal for Guyana, and Guyana would be able to develop as one of the powerhouse in the world. But I believe that, and there are a lot of people that share my sentiments that, look, Guyana is going to be forced to pay for protection. Guyana is going to be forced to pay for protection because Guyana cannot protect themselves from Venezuela. And I believe that this Trump administration is going to squeeze as much out of this deal between Guyana and Exxon, and Guyana could walk away with like nothing. And this is my point, because we have seen in numerous African countries where we saw like the deals with diamonds, the deals with gold, and most of the time the politicians in Africa have been blamed. Like, why would you sign such a deal, giving away your natural resources for nothing? And the point is, they have no choice. They have no choice. If they refuse the power of these like powerhouse countries, then we see like embargo, we see travel restriction, we see sanction, and that is what we have seen over the years. So this deal, the dragon deal with Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela should be a wake-up call to us in the Caribbean that really we don't charter our own destiny, that these global powerhouse countries, like, they are going to force us to do what they want us to do. So guys, sound off in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you think that this dragon deal was a fair deal for Trinidad and Tobago, or do you think America has the right to shut it down because they don't want any of the proceeds to go to the Venezuelan government? Sound off in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And remember, peace. I'm out.